All right. Hello everybody. Welcome back to another episode of From the Fourth Line presented by Offside News. My name's Emma, and I'm joined, as always, by my lovely and very ill co-host, Marcie.
Hello.
It got to the point where you called me yesterday, and I was like, am I gonna have to I was like, okay, so who can we have on instead?
No, I will
So if there
always
is
follow through.
sniffles and coughs, because I refuse to edit more than I have to, and I refuse to go tediously through the episode and edit out coughs and sniffles, you guys are just going to have to deal with that and not get mad at me because it's a lot. I don't like going through and editing this show that much because
No.
I can't be bothered. If I had to edit if I had to edit the show a lot, we wouldn't be doing 2 episodes a week.
No.
We'd be maybe doing one every 2 weeks because
Yeah, it's a lot.
it's a lot of work.
You have to deal with the sniffles, but the coughs, I will mute myself.
You do also just sound really sick anyways. You sound very congested. So
Yeah. Very. I feel really bad for my neighbours, the guy who shares a wall with my room.
the guy who also was singing Wonderwall by Oasis at 3 a.m. last week.
Yeah, it was. And then last night they were watching reruns of The Chase at 4 a.m. outside in the rain.
What is The Chase?
It's like a British TV game show. It's I've never really watched The Chase. I never really got into it.
No. But so with that being, I mean, I guess we'll talk about the elephant in the room. Leafs versus Habs. But we're gonna start with the first game in Toronto. And not the one that has been like kind of just taken over the news cycle, I guess, in the past. Well, actually, okay, no, it's not so much as of today because of the Boston Bruins. It's all about the original six, baby. Leafs and Habs in Toronto. Leafs put out their top, like their NHL lines minus Austin Matthews, who's not in the lineup because of an upper body injury, but he's back to full participation in practice, so nothing to worry about. It's one of those things where it's like you can't panic too much with like guys missing practice in preseason because it really teams don't want guys to get injured, like to exacerbate that's the word, exacerbate injuries just by playing through them when they really don't have to. But yeah, so notes I have on here are not very many, but one of them is like the Nicholas Robertson push on William Nylander during a back check. Yeah. Where Nylander then has an awkward fall, and that causes him to leave the game for precautionary reasons. That was one of those things where it's like, I think a lot of people were, I don't, here's where I stand with this. That is a play that we see quite often in the NHL, right? Mm-hmm. There also probably is a little bit of communication that happens where it's like, watch, like, I'm going to put, right? Like you talk to the guy that you're going to, right? There's a conversation on the ice. Guys talk way more than you think they do, because you don't necessarily hear it on TV, but unless you're Brady Tkachuk from the bench. I don't know if you saw that clip.
Yeah, that was.
Well, and we're not getting there yet. But like it's fine. Like Nylander is fine. He ended up like he's back practicing. Like it was just precautionary. You know, he is a guy who suffered through with migraines before, so they just want to be better safe than sorry. Because again, preseason game. It definitely was probably a case where he probably got tapped by concussion spotters and they were just like, whatever, like preseason game, we're gonna call it. Yeah. You know, Nick Robertson probably was like kicking himself for that a little bit because you don't want to be the guy that like injures William Nylander. Like you don't want to be the guy, like, especially if it's like your teammate and stuff. Like you don't want to be that guy. And he said he called Nylander afterwards just to check in. That would be like the most nerve-wracking call ever.
I'd absolutely shit myself. I'd be sat there And it's like, when like you like press to call and throw your phone across the room.
And you're like yelling over speaker and you're like, yeah.
It's like, I'm sorry.
It's when you close your eyes and press the call button.
Yeah, you do that and then you like, you just bunch up like.
Yeah. But yeah, no. But Nylander's fine. Robertson ended up redeeming himself anyways by scoring game winner. Yeah. I also have on the well, that was the second goal of the game. The first goal of the game was a John Tavares net front tap in power play goal, and all I have here is just like JT net front tap in power play goal is peak Leafs hockey. Like we are so back.
We are so.
And I know we've said that so many times, but like that is just like okay, that is because that was
that's 2 years. Official.
Yeah, 2 seasons ago when like Spencer Carberry was running the Leafs power play and it was actually like the Leafs would go in the power play and you might as well just already change the score and give the Leafs a goal because it was like that consistently good. Like that was like the Leafs, like that was like their bread and butter on the power play.
Yeah, it was.
And we didn't see it as much last year. I mean, there was some shifts that got made and one of mine is just they just went like I think the biggest thing, and I think I said this on the podcast as well, is like last year for the power play, like they just added it was always one pass too many before taking the shot on, and it was like, why are we here? But yeah, what else do I have? Michael Pezzetta has an awkward hit on Tavares, didn't play the third period and has missed practices. He's back now out at the practice, practicing in a non-contact jersey with like the injured crew of like Callie Yarncroke, Yanni Hakanpää and Connor Dewar. But he's still back to practice. And Craig Berube today said that Yarncroke and Tavares are going to be taking part in the Leafs like next full practice, which I think is tomorrow before they go north to Muskoka for some team bonding.
Girls trip
up to Bracebridge. They do this every year, I think, because is they do some team bonding up in Muskoka, kind of just after like the first like big round of cuts. They did send Ben Danford back to Oshawa. They sent him back down the 401 to Oshawa today, which sucks that we don't get to see him in a preseason game. It would have been nice to see him with. I mean, I guess the pairing we probably would have seen him on was him and Noah Chadwick, and Chadwick has already been sent back to Lethbridge. So like I'm not surprised. It just sucks that we didn't get to see him in a game and he didn't really get a full camp. Like he spent his camp like in a non-contact jersey, like concussed. Not concussed, but like coming back from a concussion, which kind of sucks. But he's kind of one of those guys that you keep an eye out. Just he's one of those prospects that I keep an eye out on, obviously. Maybe try and catch a Gens game. I would never catch a home Gens game because I never have any need to take the trip out to Oshawa, no matter like where I am. Like if I'm back home, I'll go see, well, I guess now they're Brampton. I'll go see the Steelheads. They used to play in Mississauga and it used to be actually really convenient for me to go see them. Now I think they're not that far away. I think I actually do know exactly where they're playing. But so maybe go catch a Steelheads game when I'm home at some point. Or Owen Sound Attack is also pretty easy for me to see. Or this Ottawa 67 is obviously very easy for me to see. Because I looked into it. Was like going to see a game, like a Knights game, when I'm home for like Thanksgiving and reading week because my sister's in London, going to school, and I was like, oh, we have to go and pick her up and drop her off in London, and I was like thinking, oh, like what if we
conveniently time it?
Yeah, like I was like, oh, the timing actually does work. Like they're like the Knights do have some home games that I could go to. It's like that would have been fun. And then I looked at the ticket prices.
Oh,
tell me why it is $35 to see a Knights game. And those are like for like upper bowl seats. Those are the cheapest seats are $35. If I wanted to go sit in like in the lower bowl, $42.
That's wild.
And before you go and like, oh well, that's not to put that into comparison. Leafs Sens preseason game, 300s. But again, Leafs Sens, which is a big ticket preseason game for the Ottawa Senators. And also it's like the Leafs, those are always more expensive tickets. $40.
You know,
Sitting in the
I've just
300s.
looked. That's the Knights game would cost, that'd be more than it cost me to see Manchester Storm.
Well, also, yeah, and also as well, like for me, if I wanted to go like your typical like average price to go see the 67s, which again are not the London Knights, but are still, you know, it's OHL, it's the same league, is about $25. I can go see the London Knights play in Ottawa against the Ottawa 67s for $25. I actually, because I looked last night, I was like, I'm not gonna do that, but like, what if, how many tickets are left for when the Knights come to Ottawa? And there's quite a few tickets. There's more tickets left. And so I'm probably going to end up going to that game because it is a like Sunday afternoon game in December. Like it's like December 1st or something. So I'm probably going to go to that game. Because like that's like the average price, give or take, for like most OHL seats, I think. Because I even looked for like up in like Owen Sound and like the not the smaller market OHL teams like Owen Sound. I think I even looked like North Bay, like Sudbury, and they're all in around $25 a ticket for like lower bowl. But I was like thinking like that's insane for the London Knights. And I know like the London Knights have a reputation of being like an NHL factory. But yeah, no, because I was having this conversation last night with Casey, one of our editors at Offside. Shout out to Casey. And we were just talking about like because they're obviously like Habs fans because they're from Saskatchewan, but like we were talking about like how like Pats tickets are still so much more expensive than like the rest of like that pricing from when Bedard was there compared to like the rest of the teams, the rest of the better teams, because the Pats aren't good right now because they don't have Bedard. They're not great. But you can go see like Moose Jaw or like one of the better WHL teams in the dub for like way cheaper. And it's still, you still have the price hike from Bedard, but Bedard hasn't played there. Like this will be like, he hasn't played there in like over a year, right?
Yeah.
So it's crazy, right? It's like, so yeah, like that dynamic. Anyways, the whole concept around like the CHL and things like that is like something very interesting because it is like the closest you can get, like not it is, but it is, right? But it is very much like still maintains that sense of like amateur hockey as well, which is why I think like the NCAA like not seeing like CHL players as amateurs is really frustrating.
Yeah.
Because they are the essence of what makes amateur hockey is still, anyways, that's a whole discussion I'm not going to get into. I could write an entire op-ed about that. But we're here to talk about Leafs and Habs. But yeah, what other notes I have about this game? Yeah. I just have another note on like the goaltending, which is just like Stollart's. Stollart's was solid with his positioning. I think I've said that before about him as well. It's just it really is what stands out to me the most about his goaltending is just the ability of him to be like in the right place with his body most of the time. And I think maybe that's because you like watch him in comparison, like you watch him in comparison to like Ilya Samsonov, who is never in the right place. Right? They both still are making it, right? But it's, I think, you know what I mean? Like Stollart's really good at just getting his body center to like the puck, right?
Yeah, like he's just wherever he needs to be, he is. And it's like almost guaranteed, which as much as I love Samsonov, it was not always guaranteed that he would be in the right time.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's great for like if you want to also like think about like the development of goalies that the Leafs have as well, because they do all talk to each other, like even like when they're not playing with the Leafs, like when Hildeby and Paska and oh my God, what's his name? The other Russian guy who I cannot pronounce the name of unless I'm looking at it phonetically in front of me. And I feel really bad about not knowing. Do you know who I'm talking about? Starts with
I know
an A.
who you're talking about, and I also can't remember what he's called. I'm so sorry.
I feel really bad.
This feels like a crime for
I know.
me. as a girly lover. But yeah.
But yeah. But I think as well as just like that, having that development there of like a guy who just is so good at his positioning in an underrated way. And I think partly some of that is because he spent all of his career as a backup, that
Yeah.
like a lot of it to Bobrovsky as well. So, but interesting to see. I will be really interesting to see more of him. I don't know if we'll see him again in the preseason. We may see him one more game because Dennis Hildeby played all of the game, the last like the game on Saturday, right? Yeah, the game was on Saturday. All the game on Saturday. That we may see Stolarz like one more time against Detroit. I know we're gonna see Wool one more time against Detroit there because the Leafs have 2 games left. They have a home and home against Detroit Thursday, Saturday. Before then, their season starts on Wednesday. So I don't think we'll see Wool for both of those games. I do think we'll see Stolarz again for one more. Probably the away game.
Yeah.
Perhaps. I don't know. I don't know.
Who knows?
But also as well because it is to note that AHL camps start tomorrow on October 1st. So some decisions, but yeah.
It's October tomorrow.
Pardon?
Sorry, it's just hit me.
It's October. I know.
No,
September has gone so quickly.
Yeah, and like because I've been
like it.
ill for like the last week on and off, it doesn't feel like it's been a week. So I'm still on like the 24th of September. Like, oh, it's not October yet. And then I've just looked at the date on my laptop and I'm like, shit, no, it is in fact October tomorrow, which is wild. Time flies.
But yeah, that's all I have to say about Leafs versus Habs game that had a score of 2-1. Now let's talk about the other Leafs versus Habs game that had a final score of 2-1. That is much more discourse heavy about things besides actual like playing hockey. It's fine. It's fine. Like I've ranted about this so many times to various people throughout. Like it literally happened 2 days ago. It happened on Saturday. I have discussed this so much with various people in the past like 2 days. I think we had a conversation about it. I had a conversation with my parents about it. I had a conversation with Simon about it. I've had a conversation with like just like in the offside like work chat with people about it. I'm trying to think of like who else I've talked to this about. Oh, I had a conversation with like other friends like on Sunday.
Yeah.
No, not on Sunday. No, because that happened on Saturday. So no, but yeah, so I didn't actually have a conversation with Les about it, but just like stuff like that.
Wild. Oh. Yeah. I've seen too much on my timeline about this in the last 48 hours.
I have too, and I do want to say, like, I really like. So first of all, to start from the beginning, Reinbacher leaves the game early in the game. I think he's like 3 minutes in after an awkward fall into the boards. Knee is the worry, and we only know this because he was seen leaving the Bell Center after the game in a hinged knee brace, and I think that's really crucial because when we talk about Laine as well, because it was the two of them together. They were on crutches, but they were in a hinged knee brace, which I think is a very important distinction to make because there's a big difference between wearing a straight knee brace and wearing a hinged knee brace. And also as well, a lot of times, like when you look at stills or when you look at videos of knee injuries, they tend to look a lot worse than they actually are. Like if you see see a video of someone blowing up their knee, like blowing it up, it is the most gruesome looking thing in the entire world. I've seen so many videos of people skiing blowing up their knees, and it is so gruesome, and it makes like the Laine video looks bad. It makes the Line A video look like a twisted ankle.
Oh. So even you talking about it, it's made me just feel
because it's the thing
my
is
knees hurt now.
The thing is with their knees as a joint, and I'm going to discuss this before we even talk about like the game and everything. Sorry, I got distracted. The thing you have to talk about our knees though is it's a simple hinge joint, right? Which is different than like your hip and your shoulder, which is like has like almost like a circular rotation to it.
Yeah.
Right? Whereas like your joint, your knee is like your elbow. It's a hinge, it's a simple hinge. It is meant to move in two directions, and that is front and back. Also, mind you, I am not a kin student in any way. I am only just a girl with shitty knees. Right? I am only just a girl with shitty knees. That is my qualification, is I have shitty knees. I've been through this. It's a simple hinge. So any movement from your knee that doesn't work in that simple hinge of forward and back looks wrong to us, and it looks really, really bad. No, I'm not saying that all Line A did was a bone bruise or a sprain. It could be really bad, but I am also saying that it could be better than it looks. And it's not as bad as people may automatically assume to go when they see that video, because of the way that we are so used to only seeing our knee move forward and back, that anything that's not that looks awful. And I say that to reassure Patrick Laine fans. I say that to reassure Habs fans. I don't know how many Habs fans we actually do have that listen to this very Leaf-centric show, but maybe if we really like push it out there that we talk about Leafs and Habs, maybe we'll get some Habs fans here. But so that's what I have to say about the knee injury, especially also because the way that our knee works is that our foot always wants to sit flat. So it is the job of our entire lower joint stack. So that's all the way up from your ankles, all the way up through your hips and pelvis, to have our foot sit flat across whatever walking surface you want. So if something like your knee moves out of alignment in that way, like if your foot goes sideways, your knee is always constantly fighting back to have it sit flat, which is why me, a career skier, has really bad knees. It is why hockey players tend to have not great knees if you look at the way that they skate. That's just how your lower joints work.
Yeah.
That being said, now let's talk about what happened on the ice. So it was a forecheck. Habs doing a very typical zone entry. That's what it was. That's what the play situation looks like. Cedric Pare, who has never played a game in the NHL, he is not an NHL caliber defenseman, and I say with that with the utmost respect. He is not that good. Stop giving him too much credit that he is able to defend in a way that's more complex than what he did, right? Where he is going to sees a zone entry, and he's going to be like, all right, my way of defending is to just stand and be in the way, right? Is to not allow Patrick Laine to get around me. And so the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to park myself directly in his path. And that's what he did. Laine, you can see if you watch the video, which I've tried not to watch too much because it does make me a little bit queasy, because even though I know it probably is like because of the way look, I have bad knees. Knees still make me queasy. Okay. Yeah. There's a little bit of sympathy pain that happens every single time. But you can see Patrick Laine go to shift his weight to go move around Pare, right? As you do when a defenseman parks himself in front of you and you're trying to make a zone entry. You can see him go and shift his weight. And Pare, wanting to still try and defend Patrick Laine from getting around him, because if Patrick Laine dekes you out and you're trying to make a team, it makes you look bad. He's fighting for a roster spot. He doesn't want Patrick Laine to deke around him. So he goes and shifts his weight with him. Now, if you know anything about biomechanics and the way that your body moves, if you start to shift your weight, you shift your weight over, like a lot of people do. You can either start it to it. You can start your weight shift with your upper body, and your lower body will follow, or you can start it at the ankles and then everything else rolls up forward, right?
Yeah.
You're not starting your shift weight halfway with your knee, right? There is an ankle rollover there first, and because either way what you do it, your knee is just going to follow where your weight shifts, but it doesn't start with the knee, which is what a lot of people are saying is happening, because Price is like, oh, he stuck his knee out there.
No, that's just what happens when you move.
That's just what happens when your weight shifts, and your knee, because your knee doesn't have the same joint ability as the rest of your joints to move. Your elbow can't start your weight shift. Your elbow is just following what the rest of your upper body is doing, what your shoulder and what your hips are doing, right? Like if you're going to move your chest, your elbow's going to move with it. If you're going to move your hips or your ankles, your knee is going to move with it. And that's what happens. That's what it did. It's really unfortunate. It just so happens that they shifted weight. The timing at which they both shifted their weight over happens to have them, right? Collide. And so it's knee on knee. Laine goes down. Laine leaves the game. Now, if you're the Habs, you watch one of your star wingers, one of the guys that you brought in and traded for to be able to move your team forward, and also is a guy like you know the struggles that he's gone through in the past few years, as most hockey fans do, and you want to get revenge, especially because Pare doesn't get called on the penalty. And this is then where we're going to have another discussion where I'm going to get into the refs of the situation here. But so on the next shift up, in which both Cedric Pare and Arber Xhekaj are on the ice for, which is where I criticize Craig Berube and Marty St. Louis, because they are not rookie coaches. They are not rookies to the NHL. They both have long careers in hockey as players. They know what's bound to happen next. They know what's bound to happen next. It is literally the next shift. It is literally at the changeover. You see Pare go to loop back up towards the Leaf zone, and Arber Xhekaj just goes after him. And you can see immediately, if you watch the video of it, Pare doesn't engage. Pare turtles harder than I've seen anyone turtle ever. And I've seen that fucking video of Nick Cousins. We all know the one I'm talking about against the Sabres. We all seen it, right? I've never seen a guy turtle harder. And I'm not saying it as a diss to Cedric Pare. If you look at Cedric Pare's Hockey Fights page, which I did, I looked at his hockeyfights.com page because I was like, I'm curious if he is at all. He is not a fighter. His last fight was 3, and this is a guy who has played consistently regular seasons of like pro hockey in the AHL, which still like those fights do actually, by the way, make it onto Hockey Fights, in case you're like, well, maybe it's just because you didn't fight in the NHL. No. AHL, fucking Connor McDavid's 3 OHL fights are on Hockey Fights, and they're his only fights on his Hockey Fights page, okay? Like, yeah, no, recorded fights make it there, guys. Like, come on. It's a really extensive website that I'm honestly very impressed by. I like, hats off to whoever manages that site, because it's very impressive.
Very.
It's a very extensive database of hockey fights. I must say. But the last time Cedric Pare fought was in 2021 in a Leafs rookie prospects game against Columbus. That is not a fighter.
No.
That is and I watched the video of that fight. It's the wimpiest looking fight I've ever seen in my entire life. Okay? It's not a good one.
Oh.
And Arber Xhekaj also as well is way out of Cedric Pare's weight class. Like, they are not even in the same stratosphere of weight class. Like, that's just, you're looking at that and you're like, that's just unfair.
Yeah.
And Arber Xhekaj just wails on this guy, gloves on, back of the head. Gets 27 penalty minutes, by the way. And so Arber Xhekaj gets kicked out of the game. He gets a game misconduct and also ends up with 27 penalty minutes on probably what was his like second or third shift of the game.
Busy day. But it was... You can't punch someone in the back of the head. I don't care what they've done.
No, that's
do that.
So here's where I get, and obviously then what leads to is the game just boiling over. At that point, the game is out of control. At that game, no matter even if then what the refs do is they just continue to call anything that's borderline gets called because that's the course that you want to take. And that game still boils over and there's still multiple scrums and fights afterwards throughout the course of that game. It's a preseason game. I know it's Leaf versus Hab, which is like the OG rivalry. Like that is the rivalry when it comes to hockey, right? Like that is, it's longer than USA versus Canada. That is like the rivalry. And, but you can't, like, here's where I go. Here's my thing. So with the refs, that's just poor game management. Because I know it's a preseason game, so you don't want to spend too long calling a 5-minute major and reviewing it, but you can call a 5-minute major for a knee on knee, review it, and then either clear the penalty. Like you don't even have to give him a penalty after you review it, or give him a 2-minute. Just give him something that gets him, guarantees he's off the ice, that maybe it calms down, or maybe then Xhekaj goes up to a guy on that team who was on that ice. Grabenkin, Benoit could fight nice, even probably would have gone, has been a guy who has gone in the past, right? And you could go up, like, I know you don't have Ryan Reeves out there, but like Benoit will go, right? You go up and you go and you're like, do you want to go? Your guy shouldn't have done that. Like your guy did something bad. Do you want to go? We'll settle it here. Because you can't fight Pare because Pare's in the box, right?
Yeah.
And then if that fight happens and it's scores get settled, sorry, I get your text notifications on my laptop. I really do hope you know that.
Happy to help.
Then it's settled, it's done, and maybe the game doesn't get out of control, and then you avoid Xhekaj going after Pare's head, right? You do that. You call, like, because it's, even if people, because I even said, I was like, that could have been borderline for a knee on knee, which, because I think I said that, and then someone was like, oh, but like, that wouldn't have been a penalty. It's borderline. I was like, I don't care. It's a preseason game. You call what's borderline if it means like cooling the game down so you don't have it get out of control like it did.
It's like common sense.
And then also as well, what else? Like, here where I go with Xhekaj, because I saw a lot of people going like, oh, well, he turtled. If a guy, like, fighting in the NHL, well, I don't want to liken it to like sex, but there's a two-way consent that has to go on. And a lot of that is discussion. A lot of it is like, just like, you want to go? Yeah, let's go. Also as well, the biggest like physical, because like if you're watching a game on TV, you can't hear what the players are saying. It is the drop the gloves.
Yeah.
If two guys drop the gloves, that's like, okay, we're going.
Yeah, like,
right?
You can't drop the gloves accidentally.
It's an effort. You have to.
It's like you just have to sit there and watch them just like wiggle that, like shake their hands. It's like it's not like, oh no, my gloves have fallen off in this very inconvenient moment. Like,
oh no, I guess I'm fighting now.
It's not something that happens on accident. It's like,
but
oh no, I need to cough 1 second.
But yeah, so, and that's the thing, is like, also as well, if a guy doesn't want to go, then what you do as a guy who fights in the NHL is you then, okay, you look for a guy on that guy's team who wants to go, which if you looked at the roster for that night, which was mostly Marlies, and then like the Leafs like bottom six and Matthew Nyes, there's a long list of guys who would have gone.
It's like there's no that's what kind of like gets me. It's like there's no shortage of guys there who won't fight. There's everyone on the ice, pretty much.
Well, except for probably Easton Cowan. But Easton Cowan is not in Arbor Xhekai's like weight class. You're not going after Easton Cowan because then that would have gotten you a Simon Benoit fist to the face.
Yeah, that wouldn't have ended well for like anyone. But it's like essentially 90% of the guys playing.
That was like if you looked at if you looked at that lineup, which but yeah, just
it's just
also also as well so it's like a thing, and also as well, if a guy turtles, you don't keep hitting him in the back of your head, in the back of the head. That's what like pisses me off about it, because then when we get into the department player safety conversation of it all, is just, it's like, okay, that's back of the head, that's head contact at that point. And the problem is with the NHL is like the lack of seriousness that's taken to head contact still is in certain ways. Siri, no, that's not why I didn't want you. No, don't take a screenshot. I said something and it activated the Siri on my phone.
Oh.
But yeah, just like it's stuff like that where I'm like, okay, like that could have gone so much worse. You're going after a guy with his helmet off, with your gloves on. Well, that's the thing also as well. That's also the thing as well. It's like, okay, Xhekaj, if you were gonna go after the guy and you wanted to fight him, why are your gloves still on? Why are your and I get it. There's something so deeply tragic about the role of an enforcer in the NHL. It is like such a tragic role in this league and such a tragic role in the sport in general, and it always has been, and it's gotten better in recent years because we've had less and less of like the true enforcer types in the league. There's a little bit more of like skill that gets attached to that position. Like you still are a good player. It's not so much who are guys who are playing in the NHL just to get sent out there and fight. That role doesn't exist anymore, luckily, because it's such a tragic, like it sucks, right? Like you see it now and just like with CTE and everything like that. But yeah, and I understand like Xhekaj like felt he had a duty to go after him, but like there is a code to these things. And I understand like his decision to go after Pari was in response to the code of like, okay, you need to have an in-game punishment for like for one of our guys leaving the game injured. But also then there is still the code that goes along with engaging with a guy in a fight.
Yeah.
So you can't, right? Like if you're gonna follow the code, you can't cherry pick the code.
Yeah.
Right? The other thing I have as well is now we talk about the fines of it all. Department of Player Safety the next day on Sunday morning announced that Arbor Xhekaj gets a, what was it, 3,800. I sent it to you, but here we go. 3,300. It's not even 800. $3,385.42 fine. Which, thank you, David Alter, for doing the math on that. I think it was David Alter, but thank you, David Alter, for doing the math on that, because it is about, I think it's like 384th of his salary.
Yeah.
Like, that's how little of his salary it is.
Mm.
Right? Like, less than a day. Less than a day's pay is how it got calculated. It gets fined. And here's where I have a problem with it, is that, okay, so even if you were going to be like, okay, what happened in the game happened, whatever. Department of Player Safety then has a duty to then protect the well-being of players. At the end of the day, that's their job. And by setting a precedent of, yeah, you can go at like, okay, yeah, a guy unintentionally injures one of your teammates, which happens all the time in hockey. because that's the sport. It's a contact sport. It happens. You go after him and punch him in the back of the head with your gloves on when he's very much not engaging in retaliation. That's a fine. That's the precedent that's getting set here, and that's the worst part about it.
Yeah, it's oof. Like, there's just some things you can't do, and it's like, it's stupid because this isn't gonna stop anything from happening. Like, if anything, it's like, yeah, he was fined, but also he was fined so little that it's essentially encouraging people to like do the exact same thing and to go and punch people in the back of the head. And it's so frustrating. I can't.
Yeah.
Many thoughts, many feelings. A lot of frustration with how things like this are dealt with. But what can you do? I guess I'm just gonna go punch someone in the back of the head now because I won't get fined that much.
Yeah, like that is what's being said, and I know like that sets a precedent for at least the 18 months. And I think also as well as because I think a lot of people were, and hats off to the people who have way better memory than I do, because I'm really bad with remembering suspensions and things like that. It's like people were pulling up like examples of just other things where it was retaliation for a knee on knee. And it was like one of them was like the Jason Spezza 6-game suspension. Jason Spezza, who up until that point had never been suspended in his entire career.
Yeah.
Jason Spezza, up until that point, who hadn't even been fined in his career, gets a 6-game suspension for retaliation after a knee on knee, which I'm not going to be the person who's going to say like, we're in a hit that, like, I know that was a hit and that was punching someone in the back of the head. There was still head contact.
Yeah.
Head contact is head contact, no matter which way you dice it. And like, I'm not going to sit here and be like, oh, it should have been less. I'm just going to say like, that is a previous precedent that's been said. And here you are being like, no, the 6 games, whatever, it's a fine. And like, you could be like, well, why don't they just suspend him for the rest of the preseason? Okay, sure, whatever. Like, he's still going to play October 9th. Leafs and Habs. Wednesday night national broadcast, full rosters, aka Ryan Reeves is going to be there. Like it's just a thing where you're like, this is just gonna. It's just like, yeah. That's all I have to say. It's like the precedent that's getting set. And I have my own qualms with Department of Player Safety, but
consistency would be nice.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, we're not asking for a lot. We're just asking for.
I think that's what we've been saying since we started this show.
Yeah. Yeah, we have. We might have mentioned it once or twice.
But yeah, so that's all I'm gonna say about like this, because I feel like you could talk yourself in circles about it, and I think we've said like kind of just where we stand on it in terms of that. But moving on to like the rest of the game, Nick Robertson, have yourself a game. Scores both Leaf goals. One of them, that second one is like that. It was a shot from an angle in which you usually only see from Austin Matthews.
It was beautiful.
It was, and this is where, and I agree with a lot of people, because then after the game, I saw a lot of people going, okay, so it's not so much as who Nicholas Robertson has to outplay to make the team, it is who has to outplay Nicholas Robertson. And like, that's the thing. This is where I sit on it, is Nick, like, why are we, and I had this rant last episode on, did I not? Or was it the radio that I had this rant on?
I think it was the radio.
Where it was like, the thing that pisses me off is that the Leafs Oh, because it was, I had this rant on last Sunday, and then I had this rant on the radio. So the thing that pisses me off is like the way that the Leafs have always run development is like they don't put faith in their young guys. They haven't in a really long time, where they're not just trusting guys where it's like you may be like, they may still make mistakes at the NHL level, but it's like, let them learn. You have to do that. You can't be having guys waste away on the Marlies until they're 24. If they have the skill set to play well, play them in the NHL. And I think, because I did say this, where I was like, because I pointed those Stars as a team who is doing that, where they are letting their younger guys be trusted at an NHL level, and it's proving to be really successful for them in the playoffs, where these guys they're able to capitalize on the fact that these guys are signed to ELCs and are at these low cap hits, that they don't have to then go out and sign like a 35-year-old Max Pacioretty for $2 million. Right?
Yeah.
Like in this scenario, after what I've seen, I would play Nick Robertson over Max Pacioretty. Just because, like, when you look at it, like, there's the added bonus of like you have Nick Robertson signed to $875,000, whereas like you're signing Max Pacioretty for at least 1.5, maybe a 1.35, like the Reeves Benoit McMahon number, but it's over $1 million, right? You're not signing him for like a Mark Giordano 700,000, where he's like, I'm here because I don't need to make any more money in my career. I just want to play hockey. Right? But like that's because like if Wyatt Johnson was a Leaf, like in the Leafs organization, he'd be playing for the Marlies until he's 24.
Yeah. And that's...
Am I wrong? I'm not wrong. I'm very rarely wrong.
You're so humble.
Oh, I know.
But no, it's literally, that's exactly what it is. It's like guys for the Leafs spent so much.
Like, unless you're Austin Matthews.
Yeah, unless you're like one of the very few exceptions.
And there's always exceptions to the rules.
Like, unless you're one of the very few exceptions, you are gonna spend the years coming up to, if not some of the years of your prime, with the Marlies, because that's just how the Leafs work. And it's so annoying because there's so many people who you can see have the potential, but they just need to be given the space on the Leafs to show what they're capable of.
Yeah. Yeah,
and they don't get the chance. It's like when you have a dog that's real. This is the only way I can like think of putting it, but it's when you have a dog and you can tell it really, really, really wants to just run around outside.
Yeah.
But it's like pissing it down. So you don't want to go outside and like take the dog out. But you can see that it really wants to.
Yeah. I can't believe we're back to comparing NHLers to dogs. But NHLers as dogs is a great offside listicle.
Get working.
I'm gonna test this. I'm gonna actually leaving this in as a test for like the offside writers and like the editors, and like to see who actually like, not to see who actually listens to the show, but the first offside writer or editor or anyone from the offside crew who gets to this point in the show in which I pitch NHLers as dogs, that is your story. Take that pitch idea and run with it. Write whatever you want. But like, yeah. So if you see that article from Offside in about 3-4 months, and it's not written by me, you know who it was who actually got to this point in the episode.
But it's like that's genuinely the best way that I can like.
Yeah, no. You're right. And it's like things like this where it's like, I think then a lot of people have the discussion of like, player. Like, I think a lot of that conversation right now is like surrounding Easton Cowan of like, has he outgrown the London Knights development wise? Is there anything more that like OHL hockey can give Easton Cowan in terms of developing him further beyond where he is now? And I think we had that discussion earlier this season already, talking about Easton Cowan. We don't have to have this discussion any further, but like the Leafs have a lot of those guys who are on the precipice of like, maybe if this team was a little bit worse. And I think that's where like guys like Morgan Riley, like William Nylander, Austin Matthews, like Mitch Marner, even like Nazem Kadri, like now I'm going like guys who are no longer with the Leafs, but like had that little bit extra bonus of like having the ability to get that runway because the team wasn't as good. Like when we got Austin Matthews, the Leafs were a team that were coming off finishing at the bottom of the league.
Yeah.
Right? So, like, the only way you had to go was up. So you're like, why? Like, obviously as well, like, not playing Austin Matthews in his first, like, the season after you draft him is a little bit criminal. But it's like that's where, like, you see some teams with younger guys are getting that runway is because, like, they have the space to. And I think Dallas is kind of just that team that's really good that is still like allowing players to have that runway, which like you need to, because I think that's what it comes down to when it like winning a cup is you need those guys on, like, it's all about having like everything come together at the perfect moment where you have the perfect balance of like stars and like veteran guys and veteran presences on the lineup with like mix of like young guys who like are on those ELCs who can give you that bonus of like a cheap price tag on some really top end skill. And it's like it's this perfect like magical like just like crazy mecca of just like everything lining up perfectly for a team and everything clicking right at the right time, because there's been teams that have been put together where you're like that team should have, could have, and probably would have won a Stanley Cup. But just something just wasn't clicking and they got unlucky with the timing, or they got unlucky with this or injuries or whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
But yeah. Moving on. So Nick Robertson, have yourself a game. He had a great game, I think, as well. Some other I'm trying to think of like who else was a standout guy for me. I mean, there like here's where I have is like there wasn't a lot of 5-on-5. So I can't even really be like, oh, this guy was a standout to me, this guy was a standout to me, because like we saw so many special, like I can't even comment on like the Toronto special teams because it was like power play 5 out there.
It's like we're not seeing this again.
Like literally, unless you're watching Marley's games, you're not seeing like any of these special team units out like ever again, right? Like so I can't like comment on Toronto special teams too deeply. I mean, they looked pretty great, so like that may like fare well for the Marlies, but there just wasn't enough 5-on-5 hockey getting played where I could be like, oh, so like yeah. Who
I did have a good game.
Dennis Hildeby. Dennis Hildeby. That was literally my next note was Dennis Hildeby looked fantastic in net. He's a guy that I just dropped my pen, but he's a guy who I can comment on, had a great game because he did play the full game and just was lights out, like terrific backstop for this team. I think as I watch more and more of him, like him compared to preseason last year, night and day, he's improved so much, and I can't wait to watch him develop further. So, like, just I can't wait to watch him on the Marlies. I mean, we talked about this last episode, but I can't wait to see what he does. I mean, he could potentially. I know some people are like very much locked in on the fact of like, okay, Matt Murray is your third string, but I could see him at some point due to injury. Potentially seeing an NHL look this season. I mean, he may be your guy next year already, depending on like it is a lot depending on like kind of the way that I could see it play out for him, where he is getting like more consistent NHL looks next year is like you have because what is, I guess maybe even in the next 2 years, because Stoller's is 2 years. His contract's 2 years, right? I don't know why I keep thinking it's 1. I also keep forgetting he's from New Jersey.
Shit, yeah. Crazy.
Yeah, he's 2-year. Okay. So maybe you won't necessarily see Hildeby next year. And again, if there's an injury or something, he may not get sorry, I'm just thinking he may not get very consistent looks, but I can see him in 2 years from now. He is your backup to your Joseph Wool starter.
Oh yeah.
That is because that is the future of your
what
goaltending.
I've said about Joseph Wool and Dennis Hildeby winning the cup.
Lock it in.
We all know how excited I am for that to happen. I talk about it a lot. But I'm really looking forward to seeing him. Well, if I can actually see him with the Marlies this year. But
yeah. It is. But yeah, so hats off to him. He just has looked so much better improved, and I think mostly his positioning has looked better. He's looked more centered in the net, and just I'm excited. The prospects make me excited. But yeah, so like we said earlier, so camp cuts are coming soon. Probably either if they don't happen by 5 p.m. today, or I haven't seen anything yet today. We will see them in the next coming days, at least before Thursday, because then Marley's camp gets underway. But yeah, like we said, Leafs are off for a team bonding trip up in Muskoka, so maybe they'll probably play some golf, probably play some tennis. I think there's quite a few guys on that team who have compounds up in Muskoka, so it's something they always tend to do, is to have team bonding up in Muskoka. So yeah,
sleepover.
They should send them to Santa's Village, though.
Yeah, they should get them on matching pajamas.
Do you know what I mean when I say Santa's Village? Just look up Santa's Village.
No, I saw.
You saw the tweet. Oh my god! My favorite is that was definitely that was they went to that for the Amazing Race Canada a couple of seasons ago. Oh, Sens have done some more cups. Cuts, not cups. I haven't done. Nikolai Kuhlman released from his PTO.
Oh.
R.I.P. Nikolai Kuhlman. It's just Levi Marilainen, Philip Roos, and Donovan Sprango were assigned to Belleville Sens training camp. No surprises there. I'm not shocked at all.
No. Damn. It's crazy.
But yeah, so maybe they'll send them there, honestly. I think that'd be absolutely hilarious. Send them to Santa's Village in October, I guess now. Jesus. Yeah. I think that's all I have. Oh, yes. Another thing, we're keeping up with the William Nylander at center experiment. I mean, there were some questions today because Craig Berube was swapping him and Domi out in center, but it was just keeping the rotations and switching it up for funsies. So there's nothing to worry about there. I think that was all of it. Leafs down to I don't think I have anything else to talk about with the Leafs. At least I don't remember.
That's all my Leaf stuff.
Yeah, their next game is Thursday, so we will probably not have too much to discuss um before then, besides some cuts, but before our next episode. But yeah, their next game is Thursday against Detroit in Detroit.
Huge day for me.
Justin.
Justin.
Yeah, so we'll see who plays that game. I mean, I think we'll see something a little bit closer to our game one lineup because then they also have a game in Toronto against Detroit on Saturday on the 5th. So I will be interested on because like Joseph Wool is your game one starter. Like I think that's kind of they don't even really have to say that. That's very much implied.
Everyone kind of knows at this point.
Everyone kind of knows that. Everyone kind of knows that. So it will be interesting to see, kind of how they solve the Matt Murray situation if they do kind of what they did similar to Martin Jones last year, because they don't really have the cap space to keep him up. I don't really know. I don't know if anyone really wants to claim Matt Murray off of waivers. Who knows? He's a little bit in a different scenario than Martin Jones because Martin Jones was not coming back from a season off due to hip surgery. So who knows?
Stranger things have happened. But yeah, it'll be an interesting one. Oh my god.
Yeah, very sniffly. I apologize to anyone who gets really annoyed by sniffles when someone is talking because that was really lovely. Thank you for that. Directly in my ears.
You know you love it.
I very much don't, actually.
Well, you know what? At least you haven't sneezed so much today that your ribs hurt. Because that's what I've been up to. My ribs hurt. My back hurts. My throat hurts. I'm not slaying. I'm really not. And I have a 9 a.m. tomorrow. I'm in till 3. It's gonna be tough. But yeah, I'll just use the power of Lemsip to get me through. I have been good. I've muted every time I've coughed.
You have.
So no one's had to listen to me sounding like a dying Victorian child.
Well, they still hear you sound very, very congested and nasally.
It's really unfortunate because for someone who loves talking so much, it's just not fun right now. Oh no, I thought I muted that one.
No, you very much did not. That was directly in my...
I'm sorry, I pressed to mute and it didn't mute.
I'm not editing this out and people are just gonna have to deal with it. This is like what Michael Jordan's flu game? I had a different idea for this episode, but I think we're just gonna call it the flu game.
No words for you right now.
With that being said, I guess we'll talk about some like NHL, some other like more hockey stuff. Congratulations to Mary-Philippe Poulin and Laura Stacey for getting married this past weekend. It was probably the most royal weekend of royal weddings in the hockey world. It was hockey's true power couple, honestly. And a lot of big names in women's hockey and also just Canadian sports in general were present because Tessa Virtue was there. Probably because Morgan Riley was not there because he was on dad duty, and also it's the middle of his training camp. But yeah, there was also like it was just like a who's of like the Canadian national women's team as well. So I'm so glad this is muted right now because Marcy's blowing her nose and she can't get mad at me for exposing this. But yeah, so congratulations again to them. It looked gorgeous. They looked gorgeous. It was really funny. I thought it was incredibly on theme that the general theme for their wedding was just the color green. That's incredibly gay.
So gay.
But yeah. Also, what else? Oh yes. Drew Doughty. We didn't talk about this on because this happened on Saturday. We didn't. No, this happened on Wednesday last week was the game. We didn't talk about it on Thursdays because we didn't really know what happened at that point, and now we have more details. Is Drew Doughty is out month to month while he undergoes surgery to fracture to fix the ankle fracture that he sustained versus Vegas on Wednesday. It leaves a lot of questions for the LA Kings blue line because they will have to shift. If he's out month to month, they will have to shift people around. I mean, they could put him on LTIR and then sign someone. There's still that they have that time. There's still also quite a few guys available out in the free agency market who you could sign to a deal. That can be a short-term solution for them. I mean, you're not going to get the skill, like the high-end skill of 35-year-old Drew Doughty. Actually, I don't think I think he's like 30. Because he's always I mean, he's always younger than I think he is because he was on. I just always forget how young he was on the 2010 Vancouver team and like Team Canada in 2010 at the Olympics in Vancouver. I forget how young he was because he was on that team, and that's like where I'm like, oh yeah, no, I remember him being on that team. So I always think he's way older than he is, but I just also always forget how young he was on that team. I think because he's younger than Sidney Crosby, and Sidney Crosby on that team was fairly young, but yeah, so it leaves a lot of questions because I think there was, you have to have some sort of conversation. I know they brought in Joel Edmondson, right? They brought in Edmondson to play with Branch Clark, but you could move Branch Clark up into Drew Doughty's position, but then it's like, do you want to do that? Because you signed Joel Edmondson to play with Branch Clark, so they don't really want to split up that pair. And so it's like, okay, so who else can you slot in there? Do you move a guy up to that top spot in the lineup, or do you sign someone new this late into this late into September? It's a whole a lot of questions that I think we'll see solved, as the season gets underway, and we'll see what kind of they work out and things like that. But yeah, also as well, I'm not going to spend too much time talking about this because I really do not enjoy talking about contract discussions. But I do want to touch base on this because it was such a huge thing on Twitter today. Because Bruins front office spoke to the media. Jeremy Swayman contract. There was just some comments today made by various members of the Bruins front office. One of them is Jonas Korpisalo is Game 1 starter according to Don Sweeney.
Oh boy.
Which I am laughing. That is so funny. Truly, the Ottawa Senators won the Allmark trade. Absolutely. But yeah, there's also just some other comments that were made in poor taste. One of them was just from Cam Neely, who's the team's president. That it was like he said something. I don't have the exact quote because I just literally do have it written in, like I have it a little bit in my notes. It was just he was like, I can think of, it was like someone was like, oh, why do you like someone asked something about why do you think Swayman's not signing or something, and Cam Neely says I could think of 64 million reasons why I'd sign if I was him or something like that, which I wouldn't read too much in the number because I think like a lot of people thought it was going to be an 8x8. Which would be $64 million. So maybe it was just truly just like a number being thrown around, but it's just done in poor taste of like, you really are bringing the negotiations this forward to the public, which truly shows like where they are with this in terms of the negotiations, where like the Bruins are almost so desperate that like they're willing to go this route of airing the dirty laundry to the media and thus to the fan base.
Yeah. It's... You know, I went on Twitter earlier and I just saw, like, everyone being like, saying again, like, it's like, not unbelievable, but it was silly to trade Allmark before locking down Swayman.
And I can see, like, this is where I also have with it as well. Is I can understand if a player, like, does not want to do contract negotiations until the season's done. But also as well, you also have to think about the fact is, like, they had from July 1st of last year to sign Swayman. Right?
Like,
and they knew that they needed to get rid of either Swayman or Allmark. And they also knew that they wanted to get rid of Allmark before July 1st so he wouldn't have a chance to change his no trade clause so that they wouldn't have to go to him and get his permission for the trade. They could just trade him, right?
Yeah.
And we also know that, like, that Allmark trade had been in the works for a while since, like, because remember at the deadline, there was those rumors about Allmark maybe getting traded while the Bruins were in California. I think it was like because I remember it was like at some point, like, it was like against the LA Kings. They were like, this could be Allmark's last game against LA, and they were in California for it and everything. But so I just think as well, like, but they got rid of their biggest bargaining chip with Swayman by trading Allmark already. So Swayman can sit at that table and be like, well, you need me, so pay me like you need me.
Yeah.
Because I am now your starter. So pay me like your starter. And I saw, some people were like, okay, maybe it's not the money anymore. Maybe they've gotten to the money amount. Maybe it's just down to term. And, like, Swayman wants a longer term, wants that 8 years and the full protection, which the Bruins aren't willing to give him either the 8 years or the full protection. By protection, I mean, like, the trade protection. Which, like, I will say, like, there's not very many goalies on 8-year deals.
No.
The only one, and I did some very minor digging into this. The only one, I think, I didn't even look at Demko, but Ilya Sorokin. I didn't look at Demko. No, because he's not even on an 8-year. He's on a 5-year. Ilya Sorokin is the only one who's on an 8-year deal, I think. Off the top of my head. I could be very wrong. There could be someone who could be like, no, you're wrong. Like, I don't know, Cam Talbot's on an 8-year deal or something stupid, right? In my very, very minor search of, like, who do I remember, which goalies do I remember being on an 8-year deal, is Ilya Sorokin, New York Islanders. That contract just started this season. He only has full 32-team trade protection for the first 4 years of his contract. After that, it goes down to an 8-team no trade list. Right?
Yeah.
So it's like, because, like, no, people don't, it's not like, no one's going, like, giving goalies 8 years is a bigger gamble than giving players 8 years. That's just the nature of the position. I mean, like, the Rick DiPietro 15-year contract is ridiculous for, like, a player and a goalie, but, like, when you think about the fact that he is a goalie, it's absolutely insane. And I mean, Jeremy Swayman's not going to get 15 years, but, like, like, I think it's also because of the fact where it's like, he has yet to play a full season as a starter. He's only ever been in a tandem when it comes to the NHL. So you have to, like, look at that and be like, okay, well, like, yes, you're a very good goalie. Yes, I think you're a very talented goalie. You're also a very unproven goalie under the weight of a full season.
Yeah.
Can you play a full season? Because Korpisalo is only ever going to be your backup. Brandon Bussey probably only ever going to be your back. Like, Swayman is, right?
Yeah.
And it's just a difficult conversation to have. And I'm not even going to throw around numbers. I'm not going to throw around term or money or anything like that, but I just do think that like that the way that the Bruins are going about it is just very in poor taste.
Yeah.
And that is the last we will talk about the Jeremy Swayman contract until he signs it.
Yay!
Because my least favorite discussion to have is just like arbitrary contract numbers.
Yeah.
There's a reason why we put off there was a reason why we put off Sidney Crosby so long that he ended up signing.
Best way to do it.
Literally, we put off that conversation for so long that by the time we were like, maybe we should address this, he just ended up signing the contract anyways.
I got so sick of waiting for us to talk about it. They was like, fine, I'll do it myself. But yeah. Has anything else happened?
No. It's been kind of, I mean, I guess Kraft Hockeyville was last night. I watched that game, Sens and Penguins. That's kind of what I wanted to say is like the video of Brady Tkachuk using Megamind as a chirp is all time. That's going up there with like Matt Martin's "Go Dye Your Hair."
It's just, oh my god, it's just like coming from
yeah, like that's the thing is like there's the irony in who's saying it too, which makes it even funnier. But like I love like oh my god, that's like an all-time chirp that like I feel like we haven't gotten one of those in so long where I'm like that's such an all-time chirp, like not like for me that goes into like the same tier of just like one of those like hockey chirps that gets put in the YouTube compilations as like Matt Martin's "Go Dye Your Hair."
Yeah.
Which I have to say it like with that really aggressive accent as well, because that's the only way you can say that.
Yeah.
The "Go Dye Your Hair."
Oh, just brilliant.
But yeah, no, that was just great. Yeah, things had gotten a little bit heated in that game, but at like one point you had, Evgeny Malkin and Michael Bunting in a scrum together, which like fork found in kitchen there.
Fork found in kitchen. Who's surprised?
No one.
Oh.
But yeah, just it was nice. I love the Kraft Hockeyville games. I mean, I think they're so fun for the community, and that one especially just felt like it was really bringing together not just like because it wasn't held in Elliott Lake, it was held in Sudbury, but like it wasn't just there for like the community of Sudbury and like the surrounding area. It was more of like all of Northern Ontario, right?
Yeah.
Like I think like Claude Giroux's family from Hearst, which is like a 6-hour drive, they drove in for the game too to watch him and stuff. So I just think it's like stuff like that it's like so that also as well. But
did that not mute in time? I tried.
Calling this the flu game.
I'm a mess.
But yeah, just it's like stuff like that. Like the history that also exists in that barn there in Sudbury as well with the wolves and just the broadcast history as well was really cool. That was getting discussed quite a bit on the broadcast. And also as well they interviewed Jason Spezza at first intermission and were showing him clips of him against Sidney Crosby, him in the like 2010 playoffs. And if you're like in deep as I am, you'll know exactly what video they showed him when I describe it this way, where it was like 2010, it was him and Crosby playing like chicken with each other around the back of the net with the puck. Like, when you like are chasing someone like a dog around a table, and it was that, but it was them around a net. Which do you know what I'm talking about? Have you seen it too? Yeah. Like, because it's like, if you've gone as deep down, like it's like, you've been a fan of it for as long, or it's like you've gone as deep down like the history rabbit holes of the playoffs and things like that, where it's like I can describe it that way and you know exactly what clip I'm talking about. It's like that's what they had him reacting to, and he did his like Spetzel laugh. You know his Spetzel laugh. you know the Jason Spetzel laugh.
I miss it.
I miss the Jason Spetzel laugh. I want to see if I can find, because my parents were calling me during that, so I didn't fully hear the interview, and I actually wanted to go back and check to see if Sportsnet had posted it.
Yeah, hopefully.
But
it's gonna be nice.
Yeah. But I don't know. Do you have anything else to... Oh, yes. Well, they didn't put the full interview up. They just put a 30-second clip.
Boo, give us the full interview. Give the people what they want.
Yeah, I know. Maybe it's on their YouTube or something. I'll try and find it. I do, because my parents were FaceTiming me, and my parents are gonna listen to this, and you're like, you could have, like, why did you, like, oh, you missed it, whatever. Because they're gonna listen to the show. They always do. They mentioned it when they called me yesterday, so.
Yeah, hi Mom and Dad, how are you doing?
But yeah, I don't know. I don't think I have anything else to add.
No. I think that's ticked off my list.
Yeah.
But I hope I haven't missed anything, because I've been a bit MIA the last few days. So I've probably not caught everything.
Yeah, I've tried to catch as much as I can, and I have done a pretty good job of it. I think it's just like with preseason and oh, well, I mean, the Oilers released Mike Hoffman from his PTO. Sorry, I can't laugh at that answer. I mean, I can, but yeah, I'm just getting to like that part of my Sens retrospective. So, yeah, with that being said, I think we'll end it here. I mean, we have a fairly good amount recorded. I have to at one point make dinner before my night class. That's in 3 hours. So with that being said, thank you guys so much for listening. We'll be back on Thursday to not really discuss Leafs hockey, but maybe more will happen that we can discuss. Who knows? Some cuts from camp.
I won't be as ill.
Yeah, hopefully you won't be as ill. Ooh, you know what? Maybe on Thursday we'll have a guest.
That'd be such a good idea.
That'd be so good. There was a really long, awkward silence there after I said that. But
yeah, I picked the worst time to call.
Yeah, no, maybe on Thursday we'll have a guest. We'll have to reach out to some people, see
who we can get on.
Because I know I did tweet out, I was like, perhaps I need a substitute co-host for tomorrow, and there was a lot of people who were interested. I know there's a long list of people at Offside who would love to come on the show, so.
Well, we would love to have everyone on at some point.
Eventually, yeah, throughout the season as things more, yeah. I think, we could have. I'm looking at like my reading week when I have nothing to do all day. I'll have so much time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. We will probably have some. Yeah, I'm just looking ahead at like what's next, because what's next to come for the show. Season starts next week. Thanksgiving's right around the corner. Our Thanksgiving, that may shift our schedule a little bit, as it does with most Canadian stat holidays. If you're well versed in this scheduling of the show, I tend to get really busy on Canadian stat holidays. Family obligations, sorry, but I don't know if we may not have a show. If we don't have a show on Thanksgiving, we'll probably have one like Tuesday, Wednesday of that week.
Yeah.
Because it's my reading. We will still give you like 2 shows that week on like the week of the 14th. They just may not be on Monday and Thursday. Who knows? We might get crazy with it. We might have a guest on.
Ooh.
Who knows?
Ooh. Let's spice it up a bit.
Ooh. But yeah, no, with that being said, thank you guys so much for listening. We'll be back on Thursday with another episode. Oh God, I can't remember. It's because I got so in the habit of just doing the sign up for us. But you can. This has been a production. This has been a show presented by Offside. You can find Offside on all social media platforms at Offside News Co. Or you can find them on their website and read all of the great articles that they put out at offsidenewsco.com. You can follow the show on Twitter at From the Fourth Line. That's fourth with the number 4TH. You can also find the show wherever you get your podcasts. Be sure to like, subscribe, share with your friends, rate 5 stars. We're really fun. And you can find us if you want more of us between episodes on Twitter at 60 Leaves from Marcie, at Pearby1 or myself. All of that information, as always, is in the show notes. Thank you guys so much for listening. We'll be back on Thursday. And because we can't say it, we're not going. We can't say it, though. We got so into the habit. I was going to say it. I was like, wait, no, we can't.
We can't.
We can't. That's so weird. But yeah. Bye, guys. Thanks for listening. Bye.